I used to laugh at ghost stories. Everyone in town said Ashmore Forest was cursed, but every old logging town has its campfire legend. Then my best friend Mason went missing there. He was a wildlife photographer, obsessed with finding places untouched by people. His last text said, "Finally found the perfect shot. Going deeper tomorrow." He never sent another. The sheriff said he probably got lost, maybe fell into one of the old quarry pits. But Mason wasn't the type to wander unprepared. I couldn't stop thinking about the note he'd left in our shared drive folder. It listens. So, on the first cold morning of October, I parked my truck at the broken fire road and started walking. The map said 10 miles of trail, but the path was overgrown, as if the woods had been trying to erase it. Leaves crunch, every branch arched downward, slick with mist, and the deeper I went, the heavier the air felt, like stepping into water. I remember how quickly the world went quiet. Birds vanished first, then even the wind. I kept glancing back expecting to see someone following, but it was just me and my breath clouding in front of the flashlight beam. Half a mile in, I found the first mark. A tree, oak maybe, its bark scorched with a ring of interlocking lines. They weren't cut, they were burned deep, black resin still wet. I knelt and touched one of the grooves. It was warm. I told myself someone had lit a torch there recently. That theory held until I noticed the same mark on every tree around me, each one aligned toward the center of the forest like a circle of watchers. Low hum, at the 2-mile mark, my phone lost signal. Fine. Expected. I switched to the GPS on my camera. It glitched, timestamp froze at 3:33 p.m. and wouldn't change again. That was when the smell hit, copper and rot, faint but sharp. I pushed on another half-mile and found Mason's campsite. The tent looked wrong, half melted, fabric fused with the soil. His stove lay upside down, camera tripod snapped clean in two. I found his field notebook beside a flattened patch of earth. The last page read, "Voices under the soil tonight. Not wind. Need to record." His camera was there too, mud-crusted but still blinking red. I pressed play. For 30 seconds, nothing but hiss and wind. Then a hum, low, rhythmic, almost musical. At the 20-second mark, a whisper, "My name. Eli." Then the recording cut. I told myself it was interference. It had to be. But when I looked down, the ground beneath the tripod wasn't dirt anymore. It was soft, rippled, like flesh under thin cloth. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The forest pressed closer. The trunks all seemed to lean just slightly inward now. I forced myself to stay one more night. I needed light to leave. At dusk, I built a small fire. The silence swallowed the sound. I didn't realize how loud my breathing was until I heard something else breathing too, behind me, perfectly in sync, 1 beat late. I turned fast. Nothing. Just the forest, motionless. Then came the first whisper, closer this time, a rasp shaped like words, "You came back." I froze. "Who's there?" No answer, only the faint movement of branches above, but none of them bent with wind. I panned my flashlight upward. The tree directly behind my tent had something carved high into its trunk, an open mouth, huge, crude, the edges still dripping sap. That's when I realized the marks weren't random. They were connected. Every tree formed part of a pattern, rings spiraling inward, leading somewhere. I packed what I could and followed the spiral. The deeper I walked, the more the forest changed. Moss gave way to black soil. The air grew sweet and thick. My flashlight beam caught faint movement underfoot. Worms? No. Fingers. Small, pale, wriggling before vanishing into the mud. I nearly turned back, but then I heard Mason's voice again, soft, pleading, from somewhere ahead. "Help me." And I ran toward it. The trees grew massive, ancient. Their roots twisted across the ground like veins. My lungs burned. The hum in the distance vibrated inside my chest, the same tone from his camera. When I broke through the last line of trunks, I saw it, the tree from Mason's photo. It dwarfed everything around it. The trunk was split at the base, a hollow wide enough to crawl through. Sap dripped from it in thick, dark strings. When it hit the ground, the earth shuddered. Something inside that hollow exhaled. A slow, heavy breath that lifted my hair. I lifted my camera and snapped one photo. The flash lit the hollow for half a second, and something moved inside, pulling back deeper into the dark, like it didn't want to be seen. I should have run. But I stepped closer. The smell hit first, old blood and wet iron. The inside of the trunk glistened like raw meat. When I touched the bark, it felt warm. And then the voice came again, right beside my ear. It listens. I spun. No one. Only the forest behind me, every tree now facing this one. The symbols glowed faintly, red pulsing through the lines like veins. The hum grew louder, turning into words without shape, pressing against the inside of my skull. I dropped the camera and fell to my knees, clutching my ears, but the sound wasn't in the air, it was inside me. The ground beneath my palms began to move, rising, falling, slow and steady, like breath. Something beneath the roots was alive. And it was waking up. When I came to, the forest had gone completely silent again. My flashlight was gone, the fire cold. The only light came from the faint glow in the bark of the giant tree, those pulsing red lines that looked almost like veins. I don't remember falling asleep. I only remember that when I opened my eyes, I wasn't lying on soil anymore. It was something softer, warmer. I pushed myself up and realized it wasn't dirt beneath me. It was a layer of fine, pale skin stretched tight over roots. And under it, something shifted, slow, like a sleeping animal turning over. I staggered back. The moment my foot hit solid ground, the glow faded, like it had been waiting for me to step off. I whispered Mason's name once. Nothing. Then again, this time, the forest whispered it back. It wasn't an echo. It came from multiple directions at once, overlapping in a rhythm that almost sounded like laughter. Whispering rustle, I grabbed my camera from where it had fallen. The lens was cracked, but the screen still worked. When I flicked through the photos, the last one, the flash shot of the hollow, was blurred and red-streaked, but something in the center looked like a face. Half-formed, stretched thin, eyes closed as if mid-scream. I told myself it was motion blur. I told myself that until the photo changed. Right in front of me, the image flickered, the eyes opened. I dropped the camera. That was when I noticed something new, symbols carved into my wrist. Not deep, just scratches, but they matched the tree markings exactly, rings linked into a spiral. I hadn't done that. I needed to leave. I followed my compass, except the needle spun endlessly. The forest had shifted. Trails that had led one way now curved back toward the center. I walked for hours. Each time I thought I recognized a landmark, a stump, a rock, I'd find the same tree again, the one with the open mouth carved into it, sap still dripping like blood. I called out again, voice cracking. Mason, if you're out here, say something. And from the dark, I heard footsteps. Slow. Measured. Getting closer. I raised my light, a faint beam from my phone battery, and saw him. Or I thought I did. Mason stood 20 feet away, half hidden behind a trunk. His clothes were soaked, his skin pale, his eyes black pits that didn't reflect light. Mason! He didn't move. Then his mouth opened, far wider than it should have. From that darkness came the same hum I'd heard on his camera. I backed away. What happened to you? He took one step forward. His jaw twitched, snapped sideways, and then the hum turned into my voice, perfect mimicry, saying, "Help me." My vision blurred. I ran. Branches whipped my face, tore my jacket. I didn't stop until the hum faded behind me. My lungs felt like they were full of smoke. When I finally slowed, I found something strange, a clearing I hadn't seen before. In the center stood a circle of stones, each one carved with a single spiral, and in the middle, a pit. The smell that came from it was wrong. Sweet and rotted, like flowers growing from a grave. Inside the pit, Mason's camera bag. I reached down with a stick, pulled it free. Inside was a recorder, still running, battery half dead. I pressed play. At first, just breathing. Then his voice, "It doesn't want light. It grows when you listen." The soil, it remembers. Then silence. Then something else, lower, heavier, pressing through the static. It wants to see through you. The recorder shut off on its own. I looked up and realized all the trees surrounding the clearing had shifted again. They were facing inward, like they'd been turned to watch me. The air changed temperature, colder, sharper. The ground trembled once, twice. And then, the faintest sound of a heartbeat underfoot. I shined my light down. The spiral symbols were carved into the ground too, just beneath the moss, faintly glowing red. When I stepped back, one of them dimmed, like it was reacting to my movement. I tested it again. Step forward, glow bright. Step back, fade. They weren't carvings. They were nerves. Something buried there was feeling me move. I froze. From the corner of my vision, something rose from the pit, slow and careful. Not Mason. Taller. Its skin was bark and bone, fused together. It didn't have eyes, just dozens of small mouths across its face, opening and closing as if trying to breathe. When it spoke, it was every whisper I'd heard, layered together. You should have stayed out. I turned and ran without looking back. The forest tried to stop me. That's the only way I can describe it. Roots lifted out of the ground, twisting like snakes. One caught my ankle and dragged me down hard. My flashlight went spinning, landing beam first against a tree. In its light, I saw something I still can't forget. Dozens of faces pressed into the bark, eyes closed, mouths open like they were silently screaming. I tore free, ankle bleeding, and ran until I couldn't breathe. When I finally collapsed, I was at the edge of the fire road again. My truck still there, dew glistening on the hood like nothing had happened. I didn't look back. I drove until the forest disappeared in the mirror. Engine hum fades. For a few hours, I thought I'd escaped. But that night, when I washed the dirt off my hands, I noticed the sink water was turning black, thick, almost like sap. And in the drain, faintly, something moved. Then the whisper again, right behind me, though I was home now, miles from Ashmore. You came back. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The whisper had followed me home, sitting just beyond hearing, like static in the walls. I thought maybe I'd lost my mind out there, that the forest had left something in me I couldn't shake. But when I checked my phone in the morning, every photo I'd taken of Ashmore Forest was gone, replaced by one single image. The tree. That same hollow. Only now, something was stepping out of it. I zoomed in. At first, I thought it was just distortion. But no, it was my face. I dropped the phone. By afternoon, I was pacing the house, lights on, blinds closed. Every creak of the floor sounded like a branch cracking. Every knock of the pipes like footsteps outside. I told myself I'd go to the police, but what would I even say? The forest put a voice in my head? My friend's spirit lives under a tree? They'd lock me up. So I decided to go back. I know how that sounds, but when you've seen something impossible, it eats at you until you face it again. Mason's still out there, I told myself. Maybe he's alive. Maybe I can fix it. I packed my gear, one last time. By dusk, I was back at the forest edge. The sign was still there, shot through with bullet holes, Ashmore Nature Reserve, closed to public. Someone had spray-painted a single word across it in red, remember. The air smelled wrong, wet metal and pine sap. I stepped through the tree line, flashlight on. For the first few minutes, everything looked the same. But the deeper I went, the less sense the space made. Paths that should have curved uphill now went down. The trees leaned inward, forming arches. My compass spun uselessly, but every direction pointed back toward that same faint red glow between the trunks. The forest wanted me to find it again. I followed the glow until I reached the clearing, or what was left of it. The stone circle was shattered, the pit twice as deep. In its center was the tree, only now it had grown, its roots spread across the ground like veins. Something dripped from the hollow, slow, rhythmic, black as oil. I raised my camera to record. As the light hit the trunk, faces formed again in the bark, dozens this time, some I recognized. Mason's among them. His eyes moved, tracking me. His mouth opened, but instead of a scream, I heard my own voice whispering, "Come closer." The roots began to pulse. The earth under my feet softened, like wet flesh. And then, a sound like breathing came from below. Whatever it wasn't inside the tree, it was the tree. The forest wasn't haunted by something. The forest was the haunting. I took one step back, and the ground gave way. I landed hard, flashlight skidding away, the beam slicing across slick walls that weren't soil. They were lined with something like skin, embedded with bones and old tools and fragments of faces half-formed, like the forest had been swallowing people for years. The air was thick, humid, and smelled like copper and decay. I could hear heartbeats, not one, but many, all beating together, perfectly synchronized. I crawled forward, shaking. Every few feet, something shifted just beyond the edge of light. Once, I saw a hand, pale, twitching, sticking out from the wall. When I touched it, it sank back in, leaving only a faint outline behind. Then came the whisper again, louder this time, from everywhere, "You took its name." I covered my ears, screamed for it to stop. But it wasn't in my ears, it was in my head. A figure stepped out from the dark, tall as the ceiling. The bark of its body flexed with every movement. Its face was smooth, blank except for a mouth that stretched open and split into dozens of smaller ones, all whispering the same thing over and over, "Give it back." I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. "What do you want?" I shouted. The mouths moved together, speaking as one. "The seed." I didn't understand, until I felt the pain. Something under my skin shifted. My wrist, the carved symbols, began to burn, the marks glowing red. I clawed at them, but beneath the surface, something moved. Crawling. Spreading. I screamed, slammed my arm against the wall. The glow pulsed faster. The whispers grew until they weren't whispers anymore, they were screams. Then, silence. And I saw it. The thing that had taken root in me. The skin of my wrist split open, and something black and wet pushed through, a root, thin and pulsing like a vein. It wriggled, searching the air, then turned toward the tree above us. The creature stepped forward, placing one long, wooden finger against my arm. The root retracted instantly, slithering back beneath my skin like it had been commanded. Then it spoke again, "Now it remembers you." I blacked out. When I came to, it was daylight. I was lying just outside the tree line. My car was there, keys still in the ignition. My wrist, completely healed, no marks, no scars. For a second, I thought maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing. But when I started the engine, the radio turned on by itself. Static. Then a voice, my voice, whispering, "You shouldn't have left it hungry." I slammed the radio off and drove home. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what it said. Hungry. What did it mean? The answer came 2 days later. I woke up to find my backyard covered in mushrooms, dozens of them, perfectly round, forming a ring. In the center, the soil bulged upward, like something was pushing from underneath. The smell hit me first, wet wood, and that same sweet rot from the clearing. I didn't touch it. I didn't go near it. But that night, as I tried to sleep, I heard something moving under the house. Slow. Root-like. Crawling. When I finally dared to look outside, I saw the grass shifting, lines moving from the forest toward my home. It had found me again. For weeks I pretended life had gone back to normal. I kept the blinds closed, the lights on. I stopped going out after dark. But every night, somewhere between waking and dreaming, I'd hear it, the low hum of wind moving through hollow wood. Sometimes, when the house settled, I swore it sounded like breathing. I tried to convince myself it was just trauma. Maybe the forest was never supernatural. Maybe I'd broken under fear. But then small things started happening. Dust on my windowsill would form faint circles. My front steps stayed damp even after a week of sun. And sometimes, when I stepped onto the porch, the air smelled faintly of pine and soil, as if the forest had exhaled right outside my door. I recorded everything. Cameras in every room, a voice recorder by my bed. Days passed with nothing but silence. Until one morning, I woke to find the recorder still running. On the tape, between hours of quiet, there was one sound, a knock, 3 times, followed by my own voice whispering from somewhere outside, "Let me in." I didn't open the door. I couldn't. I just sat there, frozen, watching the shadows of tree branches move across the curtains though there was no wind at all. By dawn I'd made my decision. I would go back one last time, not to fight it, not to study it, but to end it. I packed lighter than before, 1 flashlight, 1 matchbox, 1 jerrycan of fuel. When I reached Ashmore, the forest looked different. Thinner. Sick. The leaves had browned early, and the air was heavy with that same metallic sweetness. Each step I took made the ground pulse softly beneath my boots, as if the roots remembered me. The clearing waited where it always had. The great tree still stood, but the hollow was gone, sealed over with bark, smooth and pale like new skin. Around it, every smaller tree leaned inward, their branches woven together into a cage. I splashed the fuel in a circle. My hands shook so badly the cap clattered away into the leaves. "This ends here," I said aloud, mostly to steady myself. The forest didn't answer. I struck a match. For a second it was just the hiss of flame, fragile and small against the vast dark. Then the wind came alive. The fire caught, racing around the circle, up the trunks, turning the clearing into a crown of orange light. The tree shuddered once. Then the ground beneath me heaved, knocking me backward. From the sealed hollow came a sound like a long, deep sigh, the kind a body makes when it finally lets go. The flames bent inward, not outward, as though being pulled down into the roots themselves. For a heartbeat the clearing glowed white. Then everything went black. When I woke, it was morning. Smoke drifted through the trees. The great trunk was split in half, still smouldering, but inside it there was nothing. No faces, no hollow, only a column of ash. The other trees stood motionless, as if stunned. I waited for the whisper, but none came. I left the forest behind without looking back. It's been 6 months now. I've moved 3 towns away. The nightmares come less often, though sometimes I still wake to that faint hum in the walls. I tell myself it's pipes, or the fridge, or the wind. I tell myself the forest is gone. But 2 days ago, a package arrived on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a glass jar filled with soil, and a single, tiny sprout pressing against the lid. Beneath it, a note written in handwriting that looked a lot like Mason's, "It remembers the light." I keep the jar locked in a shed behind the house. I haven't opened it. Yet sometimes, when the night is still enough, I can hear a faint tapping from inside the glass. So if you ever drive past Ashmore Road and see where the forest used to be, don't stop. Don't take a picture. And if you find a seed lying in the dirt, leave it there. Because the thing beneath the roots doesn't die. It waits. It listens. And it always wants to grow again.